outlaw car, number 76, on 13.43.
The Thunder Road Podcast, telling the stories of the South Texas racers from the past and present.
Hello, my name is James Parks, and welcome to the season finale of the Thunder Road Podcast. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Proline Fabrication, 112 Bodies, S&S Monuments, and of course, Top Hat Signs and Designs. On this season finale of the Thunder Road Podcast, we have Bruce Sanders, local engine builder, local racer with plenty of stories to tell. And on this episode of the Thunder Road Podcast, we have Bruce Sanders, local engine builder, local racer extraordinaire. Not only does Bruce build engines for the race cars, but he keeps up with the local racing as well as has his hands in a few cars at the local track. So with that being said, I'd like to bring in Bruce Sanders. Bruce, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, about Bruce Sanders. What does Bruce Sanders actually do?
First of all, thank you for having me.
Oh, well, we like to get the word out there to the people.
Oh, I just family racing, family affair since 1960. Off and on. Dad raced for 10 years. I raced for 10 or 12 years.
Most of your racing is in the Corpus area, South Texas area?
We only went a few times to the Valley, and we went to Battleground. We went to Shady Oaks.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We went there.
Goliad.
We went
Goliad.
there.
Okay.
Right, Goliad,
Got me confused.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning my cities in Texas.
But that's all. We were mostly local for years and years, mostly asphalt, 5 or 6 years on the dirt.
I got you. So tell me a little bit about your dad. You said your dad kind of got you into racing, or maybe some other folks kind of got your dad into racing. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about how the Sanders family became circle track racers, whether it be dirt or asphalt, or maybe how some of that transpired.
It was asphalt, 1960. My dad said, come on, we're going to go to the races. I was 8 years old. And we went out there, and on the way to the track, he told me, I'm sponsoring a car. So I don't know if he was sponsoring it all year. This was a championship race. It was a 100-lapper. And
CC Speedway.
CC Speedway.
Tell us a little bit about CC Speedway at the time.
It was packed to the gills. People falling out of the stands. I remember I was amazed how many people were there. And then the amount of cars all the way from start-finish line all the way around almost to turn 2.
Really?
Yeah, there was no B mains.
And what kind of cars were they back then? Tell the listeners kind of what was taking place. What was the track conditions like? What were the cars like? What were the drivers like?
I only knew that one driver that was driving that car that night, and he was a local fireman named Red Daniels. That's the only one that I knew at that time. The cars were more like jalopies with a roll cage in them. They didn't have door bars or anything back then. And
just like a 3-point cage? Maybe. Yeah. I'm not even sure exactly about that, but they were there wasn't much to them, but there was lots of people racing them. Anyway, we went 100 laps, and I don't even remember where that guy started at, but when the checker came down, he won. Huh.
So,
and the family was hooked at that point?
Dad was building a car that winter. But the thing was, we went on the track and to meet him, and we waited in a line that was 1,000 people, I guarantee you. I mean, we waited to get to that guy. There was people all around the car and stuff. It was something I've never seen since. I mean, back then, lots of people loved that racing like that.
No, it's almost like it was a different time back then.
No doubt about it.
Obviously, different kind of cars.
No doubt about it.
Different kind of men, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. I don't even know what kind of car it is. It was because it was 63 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what it was a Ford or Chevrolet. I couldn't tell you.
So y'all went home over the winter. We're putting a race car together, and you're how old roughly?
We went home, and I had no clue. Went to my dad's shop, which he had a big automotive shop. And there's a car sitting out there with a roll cage being put in it. So right then I knew, we're fixing to have us a race car.
Did Mom know?
Huh?
Did Mom know?
Mom knew.
Mom was all right?
Yeah, she's all right with it.
All right.
And then it became a family affair. I mean, we all went every week. We grew up out there. I mean, we ate, slept, drank. It was racing. That's all it was.
As we say, you woke up, it was race car, and all day it was race car.
That's exactly right.
It's a way of life. People don't realize that. People on the outside don't realize that racing is a way of life. Unfortunately,
exactly
it does
right.
consume you. Good and bad things come out of it. You make the best out of what it is.
Yeah, but the amount of people that came around after that, I'm a little kid, and all of a sudden there's so many people.
So
that
how
are
old
racers.
were you roughly when your dad started racing?
9.
9. Okay, so you're 9 years old at CC Speedway, and all of a sudden there's these other guys that are racing around there, and you're getting to meet some of these guys that
I'm not meeting them. I'm in the stands, but I'm beginning to see who's
To understand,
quick, who's really a good driver, and I start to be pick my
your favorites.
Yeah, even my dad's racing, but I'm picking other people.
Who were some of your favorites?
Dub Rollins,
He was the man.
Al Yeomans. They were both the men back then.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some races that it's just hard to describe. I mean, they come down to the last lap, coming across by a bumper, winning. They had grudge races between those two, where whoever lost had to wash the other guy's car in front of the whole grandstands. Yeah,
Man.
And Dub lost, which broke my heart.
So you literally had to wash the other gentleman's car.
That's exactly right.
Well, that was
but
kinda-
Al Yeomans was he drove for Monty Nichols Sr., and I mean he was bad fast, boy. That car would run. And Dub built all of his own stuff and.
Right here in Corpus.
Right here, yeah.
So tell us about some of the other names of the drivers that you watched growing up, because
Billy
a lot of
Ruzicka, Mike Flanagan.
the Flanagan family's been involved.
Let me tell you,
Was Mike the beginning for the Flanagan family?
He was for me.
Okay.
He's the first Flanagan I ever saw race. And when we were kids, we would run down to turn 4 because he drove a big old Plymouth. And when he'd come off a 4, he'd always catch the wall with the tail.
With the
Sparks
fin.
would fly, and all of us kids would,
Trying to catch the sparks.
no, it was a little too far away. Yeah. But
I can imagine you being young, just seeing that. CC Speedway could be intimidating on its own. And these guys, as I say, the racers at CC Speedway were gladiators.
Let me tell you who the promoter was then. Bill Carlock.
Bill Crash.
You know that name?
Is it Crash's dad?
Yeah, there you go.
No, is it Crash's? That is Crash's dad,
His
right?
dad, right?
Yep. Okay.
Yep, he owned Lone Star, or no, he owned Star Motor Company.
Star Motor Company.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Down on Fort.
So he was a prominent businessman in Corpus, had CC Speedway. And tell us a little bit more about what you saw as a young man, because obviously you're going to grow up there. So I know there were some instances, some things that you saw, some competitors that you really, really remember. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I remember, this is the early days now.
Yeah.
I remember a guy named Webb Wilbur, and he would always start on the pole in the first heat because he was in the middle of the points. And Dub Rollins would start about 12th. And that'd be a 10-lap heat. And by the way, they paid for the heats back then.
What did it pay?
$50.
Well, $50,
Yeah,
$50.
$50. So anyway, when they would come across the white flag, Dub had just caught him. I mean, this is weeks and weeks. Every week this would happen. And it got to be where this underdog was like the fan favorite, right? So that went on. Sometimes Dub would beat him by a bumper. Sometimes Webb Wilbur would beat him by a bumper. But I remember it was exciting, man. It had you just wound up. He was a 9 or 10-year-old kid. It was like that.
It had you enthralled with the show.
Hey, it made you want to do it so bad that,
It's in your blood.
It's in your blood, yeah.
So you talked about the grudge races, and you talked about the heat races that paid money. Then you did some trophy dashes and Australian Pursuits.
Australian Pursuit, my favorite race. Love that race.
Tell us a little bit about an Australian
Sometimes
Pursuit.
they'd have 25 cars. And if you were the point guy, if there was a new guy, you could put him in front of you or you could put him behind you, right? Well, if you put him behind you and you got a little sideways, you were gone.
Yeah.
So them guys would always put him in
So
front of them.
explain to the listeners what an Australian Pursuit is.
It's no limit on the amount of cars, I don't guess, back then, because they'd have 15 or 20 or 25 of them in them. Single file, couldn't pass anybody till you got to the middle of turn 1 and 2. But once you got through 1 and 2, then if you passed somebody and cleared them and showed daylight, that guy was eliminated. And that would be like a 15-lap race. And sometimes the guy in the very back would pass everybody and win. Sometimes there'd be 4 or 5 up there and be a really hell of a race, going on
But
for
the
that.
competitors themselves just blended off the track once they got
That's
past.
exactly right.
They didn't throw a caution and get everybody off the track. They were drivers, they were men, they were gladiators. They knew they got past. You just get out the way and let them race.
They'd go high, and when the field went by, they'd go to the infield.
Awesome.
And sometimes they would challenge whether they got past. So, like you said, there was different kind of men back then.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, they might throw their hands up in the infield or something.
Tell us a little bit about the feature features back then. Like these guys, you talked about the heat races with Webb Wilbur and those guys. Tell us a little bit about some of the features you remember, some of the races you remember, some of the competitors that you remember back then.
Well, there was people like Freddie Barnick and Billy Rosica, Pat Dolan, Mike Flanagan. There was a bunch of guys that were all really good racers. Johnny Rollins, which was Dub's brother, came in.
And all these guys locally are pretty much building their own stuff back then.
Hey, let me tell you, there was nothing. You couldn't buy anything back then.
Yeah.
You maybe could buy wheels or something, which my dad didn't. He made his own. But these guys right here that I was talking about, Henry Majeski and Mike Flanagan, Monty Nichols, Sammy Gujardo, they owned junkyards that surrounded the Speedway. That's where you went.
So you needed a piece, you needed a part. You just went there.
No. You needed a whole car. You went there.
Whether it was
Sammy
Saturday,
Gujardo gave me a '66 Chevelle Super Sport for my first car in 1977.
Well,
yeah, and you don't hear those guys' names anymore. People need to know that they set the stage for what's happening now, even if it's 60 years ago.
Yeah, and that's why we have the podcast, just to, in my eyes, to get some of those names that have kind of become forgotten.
Yep.
They were staples in the Corpus Christi area. They were like I said, those guys were gladiators, the ones that raced at CC Speedway, and some of those names have become forgotten.
Yeah.
And this is the only way that I know to really get those names out.
The whole Flanagan family is to me, they were around when I was 9. They were already there.
Yeah.
And then they progressed to Neil and Danny and then Pat and
so back
they're
then,
staples of racing.
Yeah.
It's just like the Miklacheks and now the Whitakers.
Yeah.
You know, the Heinemans. The Heinemans and Eddie and all them, man. I mean, those guys been around forever. Joey Heineman was the original mini-me. I mean, if you mess with his daddy on the track, his daddy might not come talk to you, but Joey would.
I think Joey gave you a hand gesture one time.
Yeah, he gave a friend of mine a hand gesture one time. He was 5 years old.
So he talked about some of the icons on the track, but you also talked a little bit about the folks that helped. So you mentioned the Ace Auto Parts.
Henry Majeski, man.
You mentioned Lone.
He had whole cars, and if he thought you were a good enough driver, he'd stick you in his car.
Put you in one of his rides.
That's
You
exactly
mentioned
right.
Lone Star, Monty Nichols Sr.
Monty Nichols Sr., yep.
The Broken Drum, which was Sammy Gujardo.
Sammy Gujardo and his father.
And
yep.
the Flanagans. At
The
any
Flanagan,
point.
look, Mike Flanagan was building sheet metal intake manifolds for 6-cylinder Fords in 1965.
He was getting it done. He was
so
ahead of
you
his
hear
time.
sheet metal manifold now? Big deal. He was building them back then.
Does he still build them now?
Oh, no.
I wonder if he has one laying around.
No, I asked him.
Did you?
Yep.
He said no?
No, he didn't.
Did he just look
I
at you
wish I
like
had
you
a
were
picture I wanted to
crazy?
show you. I wish I had a picture.
So all these guys are helping out the local racers. All these guys are helping to get cars to the track. Obviously, you guys are reaping some of the benefits from it for your dad's car, getting all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm just hanging.
Right. You're
Yeah.
still young.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
still
yeah.
young.
Yeah.
So what happened as we go from there? 1969 racing.
My
kind
dad
of
quit in
slows
69,
down
but
for you guys.
he raced like 8 years from 61 all the way to 69.
Okay.
And in 69, he gave it up.
So the years before that, tell us a little bit about some of your dad's accomplishments, whether good, bad, or just tell us some of the stories about your dad's stuff.
He didn't win every week and that kind of thing, but he was a good competitor. I mean, he used his head a lot. He never tore his stuff up. He made it to where he made sure he was going to be able to come back the next week because that's how much he liked it, you know. He got sick there in 65 or so, and he stuck a couple of different people in there, like Bill Garnett is one of the guys. And I mean, that guy was, as soon as they dropped the green, that guy's on it. Yeah, but he tore a lot of stuff up, so we had to get him out of
So
there.
I understand that there may have been a flagman that wasn't afraid to use a black flag. Is that?
That's Mr. Witchy's and them's great-grandfather.
Is it?
Yes,
what a
sir.
small world.
Fred Brown.
Fred Brown. I've heard stories of Fred Brown that he was not afraid to just.
You know how big them Witchy boys are you have working
Yeah.
for you? Fred Brown. Yeah.
He laid the law
He
down.
stood next to the flag stand with the black flag. And when the flagman said, okay, then Fred Brown black flagged that car. And then
He was the enforcer.
He was the enforcer.
He was like the bouncer for CC Speedway.
that's exactly what he was. Yeah, but some of the guys that he had to bounce was not the kind of guys.
Well,
Believe me, Freddie Barnick, boy, when he took his watch off, you better run.
it was going to happen, huh?
Oh, yes, sir.
Is that was a telltale? When Mr. Barnick took his watch off, it was over.
You ain't kidding, but he was a hell of a racer, too.
Awesome.
Hey, Mike Brown. You know Mike Brown?
Yes.
Okay, Danny Brown's daddy.
Yes.
He was there.
Was he?
Yeah, his dad was a crew chief for Freddie Barney.
Huh.
Yeah, way back, man.
So tell us a little bit about your dad. I understand there was a race that he participated in that was a dead heat finish. They did not or could not tell who the winner was.
Billy Rosica was a cameraman for KZTV Channel 10. So his car was number 10.
Yeah.
And KZTV sponsored him. He was one of the top guys out there. I mean, he was tough to beat. Well, him and my dad in the first heat, my dad led the whole thing, and right at the flag, Billy got up next to him, and nobody could tell who won. So they decided, okay, they both get the flag and get to go around.
What kind of cars do you
55
remember?
Fords.
Both of them were 55 Fords?
I think. Now, Billy had a 49 Ford at one time.
I got you.
But when you talk about those old cars, you think V8s? Nah, they were 6-cylinders.
Yeah.
They were inline 6-cylinders.
For those of y'all that are listening to the audio version, we are going to have some photos kind of going across on the video side, showing some photos that Mr. Sanders has brought with us. Some of them will be specific to the topic we're talking about, and some of them will just be some random pictures of different competitors and different things from that era. So tell me a little bit more about Ronnie Miller. Ronnie Miller showed up.
Ronnie Miller's a dirt racer out of Waco, and he comes into town. He's apparently known already. So Henry Majeski, who Ace Auto Parts, puts him in a car. Sunday afternoon, go out there to practice. He throws that thing in the corner just like
high, wide,
like
handsome.
a sport mod right now. Burns the right rear off it in about 5 laps. Everybody's laughing their tail off at it. But then he finally learns the deal.
Figured it out.
And he became a hell of a driver, man. He drove my dad's car one night, and I'm telling you that the battery came out of the box, but he was coming.
Huh.
It was really good stuff.
So tell me a little bit about the participation with your dad. Your dad raced for several years, but you had participation not just with you and your dad, but you had some family members. But there was also something that you've told me multiple times. Back then, women weren't allowed in the pits.
No women in the pits.
So tell us a little bit about that scenario.
No children in the pits either. You know how now you got
$20, $20.
I guess, yeah. Back then it was
$5. No, but it was a family affair. You've always stressed that to me. Every time you and I talk about old stories, you always say it was a family affair. So talk to us a little bit about, I don't want to say the struggles, because that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes racing consumes you, and sometimes racing consumes the family. But
my dad never let that happen.
No?
He never let that happen. No.
Okay.
We never wanted for anything. He made sure of that. If the race car had to sit, then it was going to sit.
I got you. But the family was always involved.
We were there every
good,
Saturday
bad,
night. I played Little League Baseball. They'd pick us up from the baseball field. Where were we going? We're going to the racetrack.
I got you.
Yeah, that kind of thing, yeah.
So around the 69 season, is when your dad kind of decided he was going to take a step back and do something a little bit different.
Yep. Let me tell you one thing, though, real quick.
Go ahead.
The Australian Pursuit, my favorite race. I'm in a hobby car. I got this thing figured out. All you got to do is get to the middle of the corner, go way up high, dive off, and pass everybody.
That was your strategy?
So I go into the corner.
How many did you
I
wreck?
get it way high. Wait, I dive it off. I pass about 5 or 6, but I'm on the apron, and I went to get back up to make turn 3, and the thing spun reverse spin. So I'm completely backwards there, head on, coming towards me, and I'm eliminated. And I pull in the pit, and my dad said, "What are you doing, clown?" Hurt my feelings bad.
It got your attention, though.
What are you doing, clown? Clown?
That was a big word back then.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So your dad kind of got out of the racing side. Y'all stepped away. Y'all did some other things, and then one day you just find yourself going back to the speedway, just a regular show. Just how did the transition come back?
When I was in high school, I went, but I didn't go every week because he had already quit. And so I didn't go every week. And when I graduated, then he called me one weekend and he said, "Hey, let's go to the races." And I was like, I really don't feel like going to the races.
Chasing women.
Well, I was in high school.
Yeah.
I just got out of high school. So he says, "No, I want you to see this kid." And I'm like, "What kid?" And he said, "Terry Lamont." So I said, "Okay, I'll go with you out there." Well, I went. And sure enough, Terry won everything. And he was a damn good driver. But there was this other guy there that I went to high school with named Jerry Edwards. And he got into a little scuffle and stuff out there, which is normal for him.
Yeah. And
I said, "Man, we got to have one of these.
We got to do this.
Yeah, we got to have it."
So Is it safe to say that if your dad had not called you that day, that you would not have followed the path?
I would never have done any of that without him. The guy was one of them guys that could build anything.
Yeah.
He didn't have to ask anybody for any of that stuff. He paid for it all himself, and I'm sure other people's dads are the same way, but I look back and say, golly, man, that guy could do anything.
I always say things happen for a reason, and there was a reason that your dad contacted you and said, hey, let's go watch this guy. Whether innocently enough, y'all were just going to watch Terry Labonte, there was a reason. Something got you to the track, and then all of a sudden,
the love affair started all over.
Then you're hooked.
But here's what he told me. I'll help you build it, but I ain't going to pay for it.
Fair enough.
So I had to go find a sponsor.
Yeah.
Well, a good friend of mine named Gary Wells, his dad owned an oil field company.
That oil money.
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. What it really was is he was trying to get his kids out of the bars.
Well.
So he said, sure. So we built 3 cars.
Oh, wow. Yeah. A team.
Yeah. Now we're going to all race together. That kind of deal. So.
How'd that work?
It worked good.
Did it?
It worked good.
Everybody got along?
They took to it like duck to water, man. Yeah, they
Who was building your engines?
I was.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the love affair started, and here we are.
Right.
Getting that part of it done.
And that's where I met Sonny Heineman.
Sonny Heineman. So Sonny Heineman is Joey and John's dad.
Joey and John's dad, right?
And he is basically an icon. I know you don't like that word being used for yourself, but he is an icon in the Corpus Christi area for racing.
Hey, he was the first guy that I met when I started driving. And for some reason, we just
hit it off.
Yeah, we hit it off. We were good friends.
When I first came to Corpus,
we never wrecked each other.
Yeah, when I first came to Corpus, Joey Heineman and his group, they kind of took me under their wing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to know Joey really well.
We're a good family,
and I got to know Eddie Valdez really well. So those guys kind of took me under their wing and let me go out and hang out with them. Right. So those are great folks. And John as well, and that whole group. It's really neat to see. I know that Joey was able to get one of Sonny's old cars going again, and that kind of stuff is really cool to me.
Hey, I was building motors for him when he was like 16 or something like that. Yeah, same deal, right?
Crazy.
Yep.
So you started building a car with this gentleman. You had 3 cars now. Tell us a little bit.
They bought theirs already built.
Tell us a little bit about those cars.
Well,
because now the times have changed.
Mine was a '66 Chevelle. And we put a set of tubular A-frames on the upper A-frames and used the regular stock stuff, gutted everything, tried to make it as light as possible.
Tires? What kind of tires we got?
First started off with GT qualifiers, which were Dunlops. But then later on, they let you run some kind of, I think it was a McQuarrie or something.
Like a factory you're in or like a 9-inch?
No, we ran 9-inch.
Ran 9-inch, okay.
And you could run standard transmissions. No, they didn't allow automatics at that time.
Yeah.
It had to be a 283 maximum overbore of 60 with a 2-barrel on it.
So tell us.
Hey, no head rule. There wasn't a whole lot.
It was your kind of racetrack.
I was a young kid then. I really.
You were learning though. I'm sure your brain was.
Yeah, I learned all right.
I don't call you the mad scientist for nothing.
No, look, I learned all right what not to do.
So tell us a little bit about the racers that you race with now. Now you're in the seat. Now you're strapping the helmet on. Not only are you racing with the guys when you were a kid you looked up to, but now there's new blood.
No. This is a hobby class. The guys I looked up to, they're still running the supers, right? So I'm in this hobby class with Sonny and guys like Levi Taylor, James Thompson, Little Nichols, I think, was in there one year. Jerry Edwards was in there.
Let me say Little Nichols. We're talking about Monty Nichols.
Yeah, Monty Nichols Jr.
Junior.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm talking a bunch of good drivers.
Right.
I mean, really good drivers and stuff. And here I am stuck in there. Never drove before in my life out there.
And how did that fare for you?
Well, it didn't fare good to start with, but we picked it up.
Lessons were learned.
And we won a few races and got the confidence a little bit, and we did all right.
From that point, what did you do? You stayed in that class for a few seasons?
Stayed in that class for another year. Bought a Miklicek chassis that was laying out in the cornfield.
No, would have it any other way.
Wait a minute. This guy had it, and James didn't want nobody to have it, so he had cut it. And I saw it laying out there, and I looked at it, and I went, "Ooh, that's a bad-looking boy there." It was an offset deal. So, see, back then you could run a Hal car in the hobby class.
Yeah.
And Lawrence ran a coilover car in that class. But anyway, I went over there and bought it. And we took it home, and
Now, when you say they cut it, what did they cut the frame? They cut the cage
the roll
in half?
cage off of it, and they cut the front clip off of it.
You got a welder.
Yeah, exactly. And I got a dad that's really good at that. So we put that thing all the way back together.
Did the Maklacheks know that you bought this car by now?
That's how I met James.
Ah.
I went to talk to him and ask him some questions about it, and it was like, get out of here, kid. Which I don't blame him. But we became really good friends later on. But anyway, we put that car all the way back together and got it going, and that thing would turn itself. And I never could figure out why. This thing is bad fast, boy.
Yeah.
And we won a bunch of. I won 9 races.
It wasn't a Maklachek chassis for nothing.
I won 9 races in a row one time. The heat, the Australian, and the feature,
Really?
3 weeks straight, right? Well, we finally got to working on it a little bit more, and it had a 4x4 frame rail on the left-hand side on the driver's side. So we were going to mount some lead over there. Well, we went to drill it. That thing was lead from the feet.
It was already heavy.
All the way to the left rear. So I found out, well, no wonder this thing rotates like it does, because you could go in the corner and it would go by itself. And,
no, those Maklacheks been around a long time. They're very savvy, whether it be dirt or asphalt. They're very savvy. And Lawrence learned a lot of that at a very young age from his dad.
I'm sure he did.
Just kind of passed on to the grandkids now. So you ran that car for a little while, but roughly what years did you run that car?
77 and 78, I think I ran that car. Well, I might have run the Chevelle in 77, ran that car in 78. And back then, you didn't stay in a class long. You were moving up. So we took that car.
Were you constantly moving up just for your own? You yourself were moving
up?
I
wanted to go to those.
Or the track was moving you up?
I wanted to go there. No. Track said you could stay there as long as you want.
I got you.
I wanted to go up there. And see, some of the guys that when I was a kid, like Dub, he was still racing.
Yeah.
Billy Hardcastle, he's a damn good racer.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best ever from here. And Jarrett Rollins and people like that. And James Maklachek and Rick Rapp, Slick Yeoman.
All those guys are icons.
All them guys are up there, yeah. And don't ask me why I wanted to go up there.
As we said, you're only as good as who you race.
So we make this thing into a late model now. And
so you've taken the Maklachek chassis that you pulled out of the weeds and made it
into a hobby car, and now it's a late model.
All right. So here we go.
And now it's got a 77 model Camaro body.
And who's still building the engine?
I'm still building the motor.
There you go.
Right. But let me tell you a quick story. My hero from a kid, Dub Rollins, we're in the first heat together. He's on the pole and I'm on the outside in this late model car that we just finished. Okay, we go down the back straightaway, and I might have had a bumper in front of him. We go into turn 3, and all of a sudden I'm in the weeds. I'm spun out. And Lawrence still laughs about this because his mother got it on tape that night. But I'm like, what just happened, And I thought the car's tore up. So I go to the pits, and Dub goes ahead and runs his race. And then when he comes in, I go over there and go,
what happened?
What's up with that? And he goes, boy, when I'm on the pole, I start the race. This is my hero. Yeah, he just let me know how
reality has set in.
Exactly right.
Reality has set in.
So right then, I went back to my dad, and he said, "Hey, you learned your lesson there, didn't you?" Sure did.
Lessons learned the hard way sometimes.
Yeah, and that's where I met Pat Flanagan too.
But you remember that still to today. So some of those lessons are learned hard are good lessons.
It doesn't even bother me he did that now because it was me and Dub.
So tell us a little bit about Pat Flanagan.
Pat Flanagan. I don't know how much of this goes on now, but when a new guy comes in, we got to show him who's boss, that kind of deal. Well, that's what Pat Flanagan did to me, and he did it to Lawrence too. But for 4 weeks in a row, he used 8 tires or better than 4 on me. Every time he'd pass me, he would run into me and knock me up the track.
Just because.
Because I'm new. Yeah, and he's a veteran. Right?
He's letting you know he's the king. This is his house.
That's exactly right. So one night, here he comes, and I see him in the mirror on the front straightaway, and he goes by me, and he tries to come up. Well, I backed off the gas and turned left, and I caught him in the right rear, and he hit the fence head on down in turn 1 at CC Speedway. Ooh. And I came around and went like this to him. He never came to talk to me or nothing, but he knew that 8-tire deal was over with.
It was done.
Yeah, he knew that was over with. But we became really good friends, and he's one of the people I respected a whole lot.
No, fair enough. he basically let you know that was his house, and you were basically saying, "I understand, but I'm here though."
Yeah, but a lot of people did that to me, but he was the roughest one.
Yeah,
he was the roughest one about that.
So it looks like you won a points title in '82. Is that correct?
I think
roughly.
I want to say right now that this all happened 50 years ago. So I think that's the year that it was.
So that was when you won the title. That was in this. What was the class called?
That was the supers. Back then.
Super stock.
Super stock. Right,
okay.
They call it.
So tell us.
They were late models because I had a stock car products car.
That's what I'm saying. Give us a little bit of an idea of what those cars were.
Well,
did we finally have an engine rule per se? Were we coilover cars? Were we coil cars?
No, it was roller cams, aluminum heads. It was all that back then. It was coilover cars.
It was all stuff that's in the factory stock today.
You ever heard of Ed Howe?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Ed Howe. A lot of his cars were in there. Dylan chassis were in there.
Yep.
There was a guy named Dennis Frings that nobody had chassis for him, but they were really nice chassis. There was a whole bunch of people that did.
And what kind of tire were y'all on at this point?
I think we were on McQuarrie's at that time.
The
big slick, right?
Like a 10 or 12 inch tire?
Yeah, 10 inch.
10 inch, at least 10 inch. So you did some stuff there. You won some points championships there in 82, 83 roughly. And then
somewhere in that area.
And then you decided you'd had enough of the speedway and wanted to do something different. Like how did the transition from the asphalt to dirt come about?
Frank was going to not be the promoter anymore. And Sonny Brown jumped up and said, well, I'm going to build a dirt track. So it was kind of, do you just leave this right here and go straight over there? And so me and I think Lawrence and James. Let me tell you one more story about James McLachek. He won 21 out of 23 races at CC Speedway in 1981. And me and him have become fairly good friends. And he called me one night and said, I'm going out to the track. I need to work on my front end of my car. And I need somebody to come out there. So I went out there and he had a couple other guys. And he said, y'all lay down at the pit gate and watch the front end, how it's working when I come into turn one. Okay. So we're watching it, and he comes in. What'd y'all see? Well, we really couldn't give him good information. So he looks at me and says, get in there. Yeah, this is the car that just won 21 out of 23 races.
No pressure.
No pressure at all, yeah. So he says, and don't hold back. So I went out there and I ran it as hard as I could, but I made sure I wasn't going to wreck it or anything. But I came in and I sat there a minute, and then I thought, this car ain't no better than my car. The difference was who was sitting behind the wheel. Yeah. That guy was that good, man. No. To this day, I say he's the best there ever was in Corpus Christi.
That's fair enough. I mean, like I said, the McLachek family has been around a long time, and I have heard multiple stories about Mr. James
I still
McLachek.
tell the story. People say, what was your highlight over there? Okay, we won the championship, but I finished second to him in a 100-lapper. Yeah. I mean,
that was a guy you thought was a legend. He was your hero to an extent.
Exactly right.
And you got to be competitive with him, and that basically put you in a point where you felt like you had accomplished your goal.
I told Lawrence that I won that race.
No, well,
because second.
Yeah, it was like the Daytona 500 to you. I'm sure at the time.
Oh yeah, it was.
So now we're doing dirt cars.
Yeah, but we got asphalt cars at the dirt.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not pretty. Yeah. So we learned pretty quick that hey, this ain't going to work very good. So Jerry Edwards is hooked up with that guy, Donnie Smith, out of Fort Smith, Arkansas, and he's got these Southwest Speed cars.
Yeah.
Well, me and Lawrence bought one. Neil Flanagan bought one. Stevie Whitaker bought one.
Roughly, how much were these cars when you guys were buying them? Just to give the audience an idea, dollar-wise, roughly what were they? What were you getting? Just rollers?
We were getting cars that would weigh 2,300 pounds if you wanted to do that.
New cars? Y'all were assembling them?
Brand new cars, coil-over cars, leaf spring rear with coil in the rear. If you had no lead in them, 2,300 pounds. These were nice. These were nice cars.
I got you.
Yeah.
So now you all got a handful of these hot rods.
Yeah. Now we got all that, but we got Jerry Ayler and George England, and we got all these cats coming down.
And these are big names in the dirt world.
Yeah. Guys from Arizona came over here for some races we had here.
So tell us some of your adventures out there. Tell us some of your adventures at the dirt track, but also let the folks know which dirt track it was, because this isn't South Texas Raceway.
No. This is Riverside. They had other dirt tracks here in the past, but this one was out there down Greenwood all the way to the end.
Out there by what we know as a landfill now.
Yeah, no fences except on the front straightaway. But on the back straightaway, there was a creek over there. So if you
Anybody end up in the creek?
Yes, sir. Pat Flanagan.
Pat Flanagan ended up in the creek.
Upside down.
You didn't put him there, did you?
No.
Okay.
No, he put himself there. There were several people that wound up in there. Yep,
Crazy.
Several.
So tell us a little bit about the adventures out there.
They kept it real wet, so it was always heavy. But we had motors with, it was 4 barrels now.
Yeah.
And these things had a bunch of power.
Are you building the engines for all of these? For the majority
I'm building
of these
them
guys
for me
yet?
and Neil Flanagan. I've done some stuff for Lawrence and them. Some people are buying motors from out of town, which didn't used to happen like it happens now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that buy motors now from out of town.
No, I was just curious back then.
Yeah, but let me just tell you this. When you put a 4-barrel on top of a motor, like a 950 or something,
It comes alive.
hey, yeah, you ain't got to buy a motor from out of town.
No, I remember when I was going to build my limited lake model and I went to you and I showed you the rules and you told me this is my kind of engine. Like you've built a lot of engines for me and for my customers, but I have never seen you as excited as that day that I told you this is what I want to build. Like you lit up and you said, this is my kind of engine. And you said, I hope your pocketbook is ready.
Yeah, well, that was 25 years ago. So now we've got a late model engine that's
Right.
actually similar to what we used to run way back.
Yeah. So like I said, tell us a little bit about your racing at
Well, we won the
Riverside.
championship there in '85, but Jerry Edwards was leading going into the last night, and they were having double points that night, and it was a 50-lap season championship or something. I don't remember who won. I think Royce Danner won that race.
And Royce Danner would come out of the valley.
Royce Danner was
Royce
Royce Danner and Randy Young were.
Yep.
They were
competitors.
Woo-hoo, they would come down, and you better be on your game with those guys. Anyway, Royce Danner, I think he won. But we're racing. I think I was running third, and I look in the infield, and there's Edwards. And I'm like, oh, crap, he just broke. We just won the championship.
This is happening.
This is happening tonight. So that was, when you look back at who you were racing, they call those guys legends now.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself, I'm middle of the road driver, but just thinking about who I raced against, Jerry Edwards was a hell of a racer.
Yes, sir.
There's a bunch of good guys. Them guys came up from the valley. Chapman and them come down from not Ingalls, but Ayler and them from Houston. There was some damn good races. I have some of that on film.
Yeah, Ingalls did come down.
That was in the valley.
That was in the valley.
Yeah, that's the first 4-bar car I ever saw.
Yeah,
in my
I remember
life.
you telling me the story, but I do know that Doug Ingalls.
Doug Ingalls, he's in the Hall of Fame now.
He put on a schooling.
Hey, it was Bill Day Tire, not Bill Day Race Parts.
And somebody was looking under his car.
We did. That's how stupid we were. We go over there and crawl and look at the rear end. It's a wonder we didn't get kicked in the teeth or something for going over there. But we were young guys. We didn't know what we were doing. So.
I got you. So Riverside are racing the dirt track. We're doing really well over there. We're winning some championships, some titles.
We won some races. We won some heat races. We won some features. We won a 100-lapper one night, which you got the picture of that with my dad. We won that race that night. But
how old were you then, roughly?
27, 28, I don't know, 30. I was right there in that area.
So how long did you wear that helmet?
5 years.
5 years.
There, yeah.
5 years you wore the helmet at the dirt track,
right?
And then you just decided it was time to do something else.
Let me tell you one more story real quick. They had 3 50-lappers one night. You had to run. There was a lot of cars there, so they had one 50-lapper. They had another one, and then how you qualified was for the third one. Howard Willis.
Yeah.
He was already well known. This is 86 or something. He was already well known. People knew who that was, and people said, "Hey, Howard Willis is coming." And I was like, "Who's Howard Willis? I don't know who he is." So
you tell him Bruce is here.
Yeah, no. He told me Howard's here. He won. I got second, but I ran out of tear-offs, and he about gave me a black eye with 2 laps to go. But that guy was.
But you were committed to it.
That guy had that race won. I was the second place.
Where was Lawrence?
I don't know if he was in that race. He might have been in the first 50 or something. I don't know. But he took to that dirt like a duck to water.
Yeah.
Yep.
So after that deal, that's when you decided to kind of do something different. You took some time off.
Look, here's what I owned at that time: a crew cab truck, a trailer, a race car, a motor, and a bunch of spare parts.
Yeah.
And I had a business that wanted me to be there.
It consumes you.
And I had no house. And I said, "Man, you got to do something." And I was guilt tripping I would neglect the business because I wanted to race so much.
Yeah.
And so I said, you got to do something.
Life's decisions for the most part.
So something else happened right after that. And people offered me a lot of money. And I said, hey, it's time to get out of here. Yep. And what happened is this right here.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
We were leading up to it.
Okay.
Let's talk about the.
Okay. I want to first explain something.
Okay.
Because I know some people I've talked to, they don't even know this. Rick Baldwin was a racer I raced with at CC Speedway for, 2 or 3 years. His dad, Jim Baldwin, raced with my dad back in the early 60s. So they had some connections with the Chrysler Corporation. And they had kit cars we raced together. We had homemade stuff and we were racing against Chrysler kit cars and stuff like that.
Chrysler pushed those kit cars pretty heavy. Yeah. They were in circle track.
Yeah, they had the W9 or W2 motors, whatever it was, and all that stuff. But anyway, Buddy Arrington, who was a NASCAR racer, he would rent cars. So they went to Michigan and rented one of those Muratas or whatever was popular at that time. And Rick was qualifying, and he spun and hit the wall driver's side and did massive head injuries, spinal cord injuries. We didn't even realize how bad until later on that this guy's not going to be all right.
But he was a local racer.
He's a local racer, that we'd known for years, and he was a good guy. He was a nice guy. So we're racing dirt cars, and the season's over, and I hear this story that they're going to have a benefit race for Rick Baldwin. So I said, well, man, you got to be in that.
But the problem was the benefit race was at CC Speedway.
For asphalt cars.
And who was the promoter back then?
Frank Hope.
Mm-hmm. So now you've got this dirt car that's dirt.
I ain't the only dirt car.
I know, but I'm just saying, y'all actually had dirt cars.
These were dirt cars.
Yeah, and y'all are going to go run this race because it was a benefit.
Yeah. We weren't thinking I'm going to go over there and win this race. We were just thinking I want to go run this race, and I can't run it with leaf springs and coilovers.
So tell us about how that works out.
Okay, me and Lawrence were talking one day, and Lawrence said, "I know how to convert it over with the original mounting points for the leafs." And I'm like, "Really?" So he says, "Yeah." So he says, "Bring your car over to my house," and 24 hours later, he's got a 3-link under that thing with a panhard bar. And I'm like, golly, now all we got to do is reset the front end and get the car.
How many other dirt cars were
there was Lawrence was the only other dirt car.
So did he do
the same thing to his car?
Same thing to his, okay.
Right, but he kind of decided to race that race at the last minute. So he didn't prep like I did. I went out 2 weeks before the race on used tires and ran, and the panhard bar broke first heat. So we had to go back and fix that. So I missed that night.
Yeah.
So we come back the next week, and we run, and it runs 1430s or something like that. But we're on used tires.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the next week, Friday night, I have a brand new set of Hoosiers sitting there.
How much did that brand new set of Hoosiers cost?
$500.
$500.
And they were zeros, which means they were sponge soft, brother. So we go Friday night because we know they have to have a heat cycle in them. Yeah. Otherwise, they're going to be so soft, they're going to wear out.
Yeah.
So we make about 10, 12 laps. The transmission blows. Input shaft completely breaks and blows. Motor turns 10,000.
It'll turn it.
On the
It'll turn it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking on the way home.
Delete that tack. Don't tell Bruce what we just did. I've never said that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So now we got a big day. We're not ready. But we got to change the transmission next morning. It's 10 o'clock Friday.
What kind of transmission are we talking
We're talking the Miklicek Power Glide, but no torque converter.
Yeah.
Just a splined input with a
valve?
ball valve. That's exactly right.
No, there was
when
a ton
you let
of
it
those.
out, it locked up and away you went. Right. So we had that in there. So being that we were in such a rush deal, I just couldn't get the transmission and stuff. I just fought that thing all morning. I called Lawrence. There's something ain't right. He comes over there 5 minutes later. We got transmission in there. It's just because, heart's beating.
Yeah, adrenaline.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've been preparing 3 weeks, but we're still just going to race a benefit race. We don't have a clue about anything.
But
else.
we're not going out there to run last.
Okay, even on the sponge tires, the asphalt guys come over there and go, "Man, you ran pretty good, 14:10." I'm like, really? Okay. That's
So what
good.
was a good time back then, roughly?
I don't know, 1390,
All
something
right.
like that.
So you're not far off.
We're not bad.
You have their attention, though.
So we go home and work all day, but we don't get everything done that they asked me to do. But here's the other thing. When I called, they said, this is a benefit race. Just bring your car and run. The money's going to the Baldwin family. So, okay. Well, 3 days before the race, they call me and say, you can't run. What do you mean I can't run? You have to do this.
So what were some of the things they wanted you to change?
Oh,
Just give us a brief rundown of what some of that stuff was.
They wanted a bunch of lead added to the car. They wanted a different carburetor on the car. Just a bunch of stuff like that they wanted you to do. And Rick Rapp found out that they were not going to let me race. So Rick Rapp comes over and says, here, I got some stuff.
I got some help.
Yeah.
You
So
wanna
what
tell
he
them?
had, and I'm going to tell you this right now, he had a stencil that said McQuarrie on it. And we took a die grinder and knocked the Hoosier off of there, took a white can of spray paint on all 4 tires, and made them into McQuarrie's.
And no one knew any better.
Nobody knew any better. Nobody but me and my brother. But give him a lot of credit. He busted his tail all day Saturday with me that day.
So tell us what happened the rest of the day.
Okay, we're just trying to get to the race. We don't know anything was going to happen. So we don't even finish till 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock that night. So we load up and we're hauling to the track. We pull in, time trials are over.
And we say haul to the track. Are we towing with a tow bar and a chain?
No.
What are we
We
doing?
got a trailer now.
Okay, now we've advanced.
Yeah, we've advanced. We just, only
Don't wanna wear the tires out.
Only asphalt cars with chains.
Yeah, we don't wanna wear
Dirt
the
cars.
tires
You couldn't do that. So we haul ass out there, and we pull in, and they say your time trials are over. And I said, oh, okay. So I'll start in the back. Well, the tech guy comes and says, come on, make you a couple laps. Well, we ain't even warmed up. So we make 2 laps. I come in the infield, and my whole guys are all jumping up and down like pogo sticks. And I get out of the car. What's going on? 1340.
Oh, now you have caught some attention.
Yeah, now we're 6/10 quicker than everybody else. And I had no clue that it was going to do that.
Yeah.
I do remember that it felt fast, but I had no clue that it was going to do that. So we run the heat race, and I start in the back. And it don't pay but $50. The feature is going to pay $1,000. So I could outrun those guys, but I said, you know what? They ain't going to like this dirt car passing.
You don't want to show your cards just yet.
No. I didn't want to get wrecked.
Yeah.
So,
Got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we run the feature, and we lead flag to flag the whole thing. Terry, I think, hit the wall and got a flat. I think Ricky Rapp finished second. Lawrence, I think, spun.
Who was
you know who was there? Buck Bordas, the tech man at Pleasanton. He was there in that deal. George Hagee.
Who was anticipated to win that show? Like, who did everybody think was just going to win?
It was going to be Rapper. It was going to be Rapper or Labonte. Yeah. They made Labonte change tires when he got there. Can you believe that? He came for free to do a benefit race. And they wouldn't let him run the tires he brought. That was just chicken as it could be.
So you had to kind of conform to the rules as best as you could, and you went out there, set fast time, and then led flag to flag.
Flag to flag.
And everybody was kosher with that when it came time to collect the money?
Not quite. No. I sent my sister-in-law to get the money, and she came back and said, hey, there's some people yelling at me. So I said, well, it's about to rain. Let's get out of here. So we left, and that was the end of that. I wanted to clarify that because people thought that we came out there on purpose to cheat. We did not. We did not. We had no clue that car was going to run a 1340. Let me tell you this. If Rick Rapp was in that car, it would have turned a 1290.
Really?
That car was bad fast. And I hadn't been on that track in 5 years. I had 1,000 laps there, but I hadn't been there for 5 years.
So where did that car end up?
That race sold that car, that motor, that truck, and that trailer, and I got $12,000 for the host shooting match. Robert Tazier bought the car for somebody at the Valley.
Yeah.
And he took all the asphalt crap that was on it, all the dirt stuff, everything. A guy named Blackie Blackard from Port Aransas Pass bought the engine. Sonny Heineman bought the trailer. And some guy walked into my shop one day and said, you want to sell that crew cab? And that was gone.
So you won the race, one of the biggest races of your career.
But not 1,000. They only gave me 700, and I wasn't going to argue about it.
So you won. Let's just say that
that's not the biggest race I ever won.
No.
The 100 lapper at Riverside when my dad, one of the last times my dad ever went to the racetrack, and I have that picture.
Yep. That was the biggest race
That's
for
the
you?
biggest race to me. Yeah.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. But you winning that race at CC Speedway, that sold everything and that put you out of racing.
Put me a down payment on a house.
Life's decisions. But you haven't completely stepped away from racing. You did go back and race a time or two after that.
I'm not a good spectator, so I went, but I just wasn't having fun. But I would go visit my friends, Stevie and Lawrence and all of them, and you see, I knew Ronnie Whitmire, and Tanner, and just a bunch of people that, because I met thousands of people over the years, so I would go by and see everybody that I knew, and I've met new people now too, like Chuck Perry and people like that. I mean, they've been real nice to me, and I appreciate that because I stepped away for at least 6 or 7 years.
Right.
I didn't even go. I didn't care, you know. But then all of a sudden, and this is another story, Billy Hardcastle is running a modified, and he comes to me and says, "Hey, Nick needs a motor." So I'm like, okay. So we built him a motor, and I called some cam guys, and I lied to them about what we're doing here. But they send me I tell them that we're big dogs. Because you guys, those cam guys, you gotta
talk to them a little bit.
That's exactly right. So they send me a cam, and that is one mean son of a gun. But it blew up the first night.
Oh.
Anyway, Mike Flanagan approached me. Billy Hardcastle approached me. Several of the guys that I'd known from years back.
They wanted a local
me.
engine builder. They wanted
That's
the local
exactly
guy to
right.
build it. So you stayed in the racing scene, obviously building engines for the local racers.
Yeah,
doing
but here's the
like
thing.
that.
I built motors, and I thought, man, this is going to be the baddest thing out there. I was very disappointed, hurt my feelings, and I said, okay, I'm on a mission now. I'm on a mission. I'm going to build a motor. I'm going to find out why this motor don't run.
No, but that's what makes you you. That's why I call you the mad scientist. You're not afraid to try something, and you're not afraid to tell us, hey, you're a dumbass.
Yeah, exactly. And I was. Yeah. This is sport mods now, which I didn't even know. I never seen a sport mod in my life until about 10 years ago.
Yep.
So I'm working on these sport mod motors, trying to get them to go. And they run all right, but there's just something not there, you know. Well, I finally found it, and you can see now.
Yeah, no, you have some guys out there running your stuff that are very competitive.
It took me a long time to figure it out.
You have engines in multiple classes now. Obviously, at the local level, we have the pure stock class or the factory stock class. We have the sport mod class, and we do occasionally have the modifieds. And I think you've got an engine, at least one engine in every class,
no doubt,
if not multiples.
Right.
But but
I want to say Mason Castaneda and all them guys. I would have never built factory stock. You brought me a bunch of factory stock.
Yeah, Mason and his group are the ones that kind of turned me on to you. Eddie Valdez and Joey, they're the ones that kind of turned me on to you. That's when I started using you, and then you and my dad really got along. So that just kind of kept.
I liked your dad. Yeah.
That kind of kept us coming back to you, even though we would come and say we need a little more, or we never said we needed less. Racers always want more, and that's the illness of it.
Well, as an engine builder, you're always looking for more too.
Delete the recall on the tack, and don't ever say a word to Bruce. So, but not just are you building engines, you're actually helping out with some guys, with some teams.
Well, I got hooked up with Brian Rye,
right?
Because I was going to get hooked up with Joey, but he got sick. And then I was going to get hooked up with you, but you decided Shockgate and quit.
The Shockgate happened, and I was done.
Shockgate happened, you quit.
I remember that conversation.
So I'm looking for somebody. Well, I see Brian Rye, which I knew his dad from the 70s.
Right.
And he comes out of nowhere. I never seen him race.
Silent assassin.
And he gets third or fourth in a 50-lapper.
Yeah.
So the next week, phone rings, it's Brian Rye. So I say, yeah, what can I do for you? I want to bring a motor. Can you look at it? So he brings it, and it's on the tailgate. And I'm like, nope. We ain't working on that. I said, I'm looking for somebody. Let me help you. Let me do I'll put some money in it. You put some money in it.
Right.
So we built that. And then if I want you to pull it out, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And Brian Rye is one of the hardest working people. Saturday night, we doubled up.
Yeah.
He had no pit crew. He loaded both the factory stock and the limited. Brought him to the track. I think Connor Rye was there helping him.
One-man band for the most part.
Worked on them all week. I went over there a couple nights, helped him. Set them both up, brought them to the track, adjusted on both cars there, drove them, and won everything.
And then had to haul them back to Ingleside.
and then had to hold him back to Ingleside about 4 in the morning. Yeah.
No,
I got a lot of respect for that guy. I mean,
he definitely.
Let's put it this way: he deserved that.
Yeah, no, he definitely came down and he definitely put on a show. He had some competitors breathing down his neck, and
he had a very good competitor,
and he was a little bit handicapped in the fact that we lost a rocker arm.
Right, lost a rocker arm with 3 laps to go. Don't tell Moppin that.
No, we heard it. When he where we were standing when he came into 3, we heard the motor kind of lay over just a bit, and man, he used that momentum to his favor, but he was able to pull it off. But no, I tell everybody anytime they listen to me, you do not sleep on those Rye brothers. They're silent assassins, and they will be there at the end. That's just the way it is.
Let me tell you this too, though. Jared Moppin, he could have took him out coming out of 4.
No,
he didn't do it. I got a lot of respect for that kid.
No, he ran him clean.
That kid's a hell of a driver.
Well, cool. Good deal for you, and good deal to Brian for what he was able to accomplish at the race ranch this past weekend. Is there anything else you want to talk about in some of your stories, some of your adventures in the racing stuff?
Nah, just that I was a mediocre guy, and we did win some races. But what I really like now is the guys that I raced against, and I beat them sometimes. Like Howard, that guy's a legend. I never beat him; I was second to him.
But
like
you were
Lawrence,
competitive with him.
Like Lawrence, we outrun him sometimes.
Yeah,
not every time, but no doubt he's a legend now. The Whitaker family, look at that. Look at the Heineman. Joey Heineman's one of the best asphalt racers at this
Don't
county.
tell him that.
Well, it's the truth, though.
I understand.
I understand what you're saying, but it's the truth. And Eddie Valdez, I mean, he's a smart.
He's good as gold.
He knows a lot about those cars.
He's helped me a ton. In fact, when I was fielding a car for myself and Eddie was helping Mason, we would help each other, much like you and I do.
Yep, exactly.
Sharing things back and forth. And a lot of people don't understand. Why are you helping that guy? He helps your competitor because we both help each other.
That's exactly right.
You and I working together have made both of those cars fast.
I think so too.
That's just exactly the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and you've been real good to me, and I'll tell you, I appreciate that.
That's just part of racing. Like I said, I just try to make sure that everybody has a good time. Make sure the cars are competitive when they get on the track, and then we just let the drivers do it from there. Like I've told you before, you and I can do what we can do in the pits and at the track, but once they crest the hill, that's on them.
Yeah, it's so what's the word?
It gets a little tense.
Yeah,
sometimes.
the tense. Yeah, when they both go over the hill at the same time, it's like, oh God, here we go again.
Well, Bruce, man, I appreciate you coming on the Thunder Road podcast and telling us your stories.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for telling us the tales and telling us the stories. And like I said, there will be some photos coming across on the video version. So also on the Facebook page, there'll be some photos that we'll post up. But I do appreciate you coming and telling us your story. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And as the checkered flag flies on this final episode of this season for the Thunder Road podcast, I would like to take a minute to thank Bruce Sanders for coming on the show and telling us his racing stories and his racing tales. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for staying with us for this first season: Top Hat Signs and Designs, Proline Fabrication, 112 Bodies, and of course, S&S Monuments. So the Thunder Road podcast was just an idea that I had, and my concern was it was just going to be an idea, but with the crew behind me, they were able to make it into a reality, and I do want to thank them. I want to thank the crew for getting the Thunder Road podcast to where it is today, as well as I want to thank my guests. Each and every one of our guests that we had on this season brought in a different story. And I'm going to say most of them about racing, but a lot of them about their life experiences with racing. So with that being said, thank you. Thank you to every one of y'all that made the Thunder Road podcast what it is today.